Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Focus on DatoCMS course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Feel free to send me questions, comments, feedback. If you have ideas of future lessons, just send them my way, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Today, I'm going to show you how to work with entries and assets, and specifically, how do we create versions and revert to previous versions. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So let's jump in. Let me go ahead and show my screen here. And okay, so what am I going to talk about here today? So let's start with what are versions. Versions are a snapshot of a record each time you click on save. That's really important to understand, that it's a snapshot of anything that changed in that record. And this is going to come into play to understand when we talk about localization and version control for localization. So you can easily revert to previous versions, and I'll show you how to do that in DatoCMS. And of course, before you revert, you can see what changed, what got deleted, what got added, and like I said, what changed. So I'll show you all of that in just a second. But what I want to talk to you about first is the hierarchy of DatoCMS, because you need to understand this to really understand, not to really understand, but at least to have a better idea of how versions work. At the top level, we have the DatoCMS product. Then you can have multiple projects. Each project can have multiple environments. Okay. Now, for example, you'll have a master environment, and you may have a development environment, a staging environment, so on and so forth. Environments have two things. They have content and they have media, among other things, but the main thing for us, right? Within content, we have content types. That's how you enter information. Content types have entries. That's when your authors go into, let's say, the blog content type and create a new blog entry. Entries have versions. So whenever you enter something into that blog article content type, you create a version. Then you go back and change it, you create another version, or what they call snapshots. So that's important to understand, and I'll show you how that looks like, what that looks like in DatoCMS. The other thing that's important to understand, and I already gave the spoiler away, on the media side, there is no version control. You can't remove a media and then revert back to that media before. At least as far as I know, I looked everywhere and I just couldn't find anything anywhere, both on DatoCMS, the instance, and on documentation. There's nothing that says you can actually revert. But I have a possible workaround that may work for you. Okay, so that's the overview. I want to make sure I've got it covered here. So what I want to do now is I want to show you in DatoCMS here. We're going to go into, I have some content types from my previous lesson, and we're going to go into here, and I'm going to go into, I went into content, and I'm just going to go in this person collection that I have. And you can see that I have here Marcelo as an entry. And actually, let me go, there we go. So that way we see the sidebar, because in the sidebar, you're going to see revision history. And you can see that this entry was created once only, right here. You see November 3rd at 7:48, I created it and published it. So let's make a change real quick. So we're going to say Marcel, we'll just remove the O, we'll say Marcel, and we'll, let's see, we'll add an S, even though all of this is wrong on purpose. And then we'll add another, we'll change this to 2345. Let's go ahead and click on save. And now you see right here under revisions, you see that a new version was created. The previous version is November 3rd. The new version is what we just saved and published right now. And you can see that this version is actually live. It's published. So how do we then go look at previous versions and or revert to previous versions? It's really easy. It's real easy. You click on in any of these, it doesn't matter. You may have 100 here. You just click on one of them. What happens, you get the record history, and then it's going to show you all the versions you have here. So for example, you can see that we've changed the O and the S here. And on the previous version, it had Marcelo Lewin. But in this version, we changed the O and the S. So let's say you want to revert to the previous version right here. And anything that changed is, or anything, yeah, anything that changed or added is green. Anything that got removed as an O is going to be your deletions, okay? So let's say we pick this and we revert. So, or I'm sorry, that's the published version. We'll pick the November 3rd and we go, you know what, really, this is the correct name. Let's click on restore this revision. So we'll restore it. And then you notice that it restored the previous revision by creating a new version and publishing it. So now we have three. This one, the November 3rd, and today's right now is going to be the same thing. You can see right there, and you can see some of the changes, right? So we're good on that. So now we have the Marcelo Lewin, and then everything else is back to normal. So if we make another change, if we go back to 2, 3, 4, 5 on this, click on save, we have a new version. And right here, it only shows you the latest 3 versions. If you want to see more, just click on another version available. But what it's going to do, it's going to bring up the pop-up basically. So you can see the other version available. So you can see here what changed back. You can see the current version. And this is how you manage version control. Now, one thing I did notice, and I'm going to bring this up to DatoCMS, this is a block. So if we go into settings, it's one of these block libraries. It's the address. So now if we go into content under this entry and click on revision history, if we look at that, if you recall, we changed the 111 back to 2345 on the current version, right? So if you have 2345 right there, for some reason that is not showing there. So I'm not sure if that's because it's a block and for some reason it's not tracking the block. But that's something, if DatoCMS, you're checking this out, that may be a potential issue that maybe needs to be fixed. But regardless, you can see that we can easily travel back in time, basically, and look at all the different changes. And it's interesting because on the previous ones, you see all the changes. It's just the most current ones that you won't see on those blocks right here. Okay, so very, very easy to make changes, very easy to restore. Alrighty, so let's close this up and let's make sure I've covered what I wanted to cover on this portion of it, because this portion is pretty simple. I mean, the DatoCMS pretty much takes care of all those revisions for you automatically, so that's not a big deal. So let's talk about localization now. So let's go back to Miro here, and I'm going to show you. And what happens is it's the same hierarchy, okay? Everything is the same here. But what really happens behind the scene is right now I don't have any locales except one. But when you have multiple locales, the snapshot is actually keeping a copy for the changes of each locale, okay? So that's really important to understand. So a snapshot will have all the changes for all the locales done at one time. What does that mean? The implication here is that you cannot make a change to, let's say, locale number 2, which let's say it's Spanish, and a change to the main locale, let's say English, which I'll show you, and then only want to revert locale 2. When you're reverting the entire version, the entire snapshot, which includes all locales. And that's why I broke it apart here, because I wanted you to understand that when you go from version 1 to version 2, you're bringing every locale, that change along with it. It is not like, oh, only bring in this change from this locale and not from this locale. Very important to understand. So let's go into DatoCMS here. We'll go to settings. Let's add Spanish. Just added Spanish for locale. And let's make sure we go to our models, and we're going to go to company model. Let's make sure we have the field. I think I already have it. Yeah, I do. It's enabled for localization. So great. So let's go to the company. We'll go to company here. We'll enter it in company. We'll go company. And now you notice we have English and Spanish. Let's see, revision history. We only have this current version. So we're going to do this. We're going to change this to headless creator, like that. We'll click on save. And then, of course, we have a new version. If we bring it up, we'll see that this is what happened. We removed the .com and added the braces, right? No problem. This is the previous version. Now we can look at Spanish here because we have locales enabled. We can look at Spanish, and there's no value. Nothing got changed, right? Nothing. There is no value because we never added a value. So let's go into the entry here, and let's add, and we'll call it headless creadores. There you go. We'll click on save, and we have English headless creator. Well, let's make it nice. We'll do that. We'll do this. Let's do this. We'll go like that, and we'll go creadores like that. We'll save it. So now we saved it. We have a new version. So if we go back, you'll see the new English headless creator, headless creadores. We added the value. We didn't have that before. Or actually, we changed the value because we did have it before. If we look at the previous one, you can see we had headless creadores, which was added from the previous one, which had no value. So you can trace to see what happened. Oh, at 1333, we had no value. Then we added headless creadores. Then we added the braces, right? And we changed headless creator right there, right? Before it was, actually, no, we didn't change headless creator. We changed that way back here. There we left it, there we left it. So, okay, so that's how you deal with locales. But here's the deal. I'm going to go to English. I'm going to say headless creators. It's headless creator, but headless creator. And I'm going to change creador like that. So I made two changes. Actually, creadores. We'll leave that like that. We'll leave it as it is. So now when I go into this version, let's say I only want to revert, see creators right there? I want to revert the English version only and not the Spanish. So I'm going to remind you, if you look at here, a version is a snapshot. A version is a snapshot of all the locales, all of them. So that means that when I revert, if I go here, we have headless creators and creadores. If I go back to this one, we're going to have headless creator, and then this will stay like that. So we'll say restore. So now we have headless creadores, headless creator. So you cannot choose and pick. Only revert for this entry, or for this version, only revert the Spanish, only revert the English, because a version is a snapshot of all the locales. You're reverting everything, so keep that in mind when because there may be times where I made a mistake in the English version, but all the other languages are okay, and you're not going to be able to. It's all or none. Okay, so that takes care of localization. Alrighty. So what I wanted to show you now is media. Let's go to media for a second. And we have here some media assets. So if I click on a media asset, my favorite pizza, but I'm vegetarian, so I cannot have pepperoni. Too bad. But you can see here on the right-hand side, you have default metadata, some categorization information, creator, records using this asset, and you can replace the asset. But there's nothing about version control on this that I'm aware of. Again, DatoCMS, if I'm mistaken, please, I'll create a follow-up video on this. But as far as I know, there are absolutely no version control for images. So what do we do? How can we do that? So I have a proposal for you, which is a little bit more work, but may work. I say we create an asset content type, which is a wrapper to an asset, give it a title, and then you can add more metadata. For example, let's say, think of it as a inexpensive digital asset management system that you're creating with that. Maybe you want to add more metadata. You can add custom metadata here, but maybe you want to do other things. But what I recommend, what you could do is we can go to settings. Let's go to models. We'll create a new model. And let's look at here. We're going to create a model called asset. We're going to give it a title, an asset, which is a media type, and a metadata, some extra field. I'm going to skip the metadata because we don't need that right now. So we'll create asset. Let's create it. Okay, and now let's add a field called title. It's a single. And I'm going to add another field called media. It's going to be a single asset. It's going to be the asset. Actually, we'll call it media. I'll just call it media. Save. Well, let's do that. I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. Okay, so we have that content type. So now what we can do is if we go to content and go to asset, I can create a new record, and I'm going to call this one Spock, my favorite character of all time. Upload new, and I'm going to select Spock 1. And that's one of my favorite shots of him too. Okay, we'll let it load and do its thing. We'll click on save, and I want you to notice here on the right hand side. Well, check it out. We have revisions now. Not bad. So now if we go back here into Spock, what do we do here? How can we fix this with a different image? Now I want a different image to represent Spock. Well, I can go ahead and remove. I can go ahead and upload new. Now I'm going to say Spock 2. It's doing its thing. Let's wait, and then we'll click on save. It's taking a little while there. It's okay. There we go. Okay, we'll click on save and look at revisions. So now we have 2 revisions. Let's look at them. Well, we have the title Spock, and the previous one had Spock 1. The second one, we remove Spock 1 and we have Spock 2. Voila, we have version control for our assets. But that means that in your content types, you're not going to add a field of media type. You're going to add a field that references your asset content type. Let me show you what I mean. Let's go into settings again. We'll go into models. We'll create a new one. I'm just going to create one called blog, just for now. Something simple. And I think title, body, and media. Then I'm going to say add new. We'll say title, single title. Then we'll create another one called structured text. We'll call it body. And finally, let's say you really wanted media. Normally you would pick media, but we're not going to do that because then we can't have version control, right? I'm going to go ahead and pick links. I'm going to say it's a single link because it's only one image. And I'm going to call it author image. Why not? Now, validation, I'm going to go accept only specific model asset. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, we'll click on save here. I'm going to go back to body, and in body, I'm going to go validation. I'm going to say specify the blocks allowed in this field. Well, not the blocks. Allow links and inline records for these models. So I'm going to allow that people insert assets in there that are pointing to our assets. So now I'm going to click on save. So now we have an author. Let's pretend the author can only link to media, right? We have an author. We'll go content. Let's go back here. We'll go to blog. We'll create a new blog entry. So here is my new blog article. And here is the great Spock. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick from library Spock. That's the only entry I had, right, in my asset. If I click on that and say from library, it'll bring up my asset records, which is Spock. That's the content type. So now I click on save, and we have Spock. This is pointing to Spock. Spock, it's this entry with this image, which you can just get. Now imagine that marketing says, no, that's the wrong image. But we want to change it and revert to the previous version because they can't find it. Well, they can go to revision. They can go to here. And they can look at that and go, yes, this is the one, revert. And now they have that. So now when we go to blog, the one that was using it, click on that, it's the previous version. So this is kind of, it is version control, but it's putting a wrapper around media, so then you can have version control around your media. Now, what really happened in media? Let's look at that, because this is what really happened in media. We have two images. It's not like we went into this image and replaced it and then can revert back to that other image. Basically, what you have is you have both versions of that image that is being referenced by different, or both images that is being referenced by different revisions in the asset entry type. That's what it is. But at least this gives you the ability to go back, right? Because now somebody in marketing again goes, no, we're good to go on the other one. Let's go back to the other one. So they can click on that and they go, yeah, let's restore this revision. Boom, they're back to that. No worries at all. And everything is still pointing to Spock and not to this image, which through the API, you can then just get the image, basically. Okay, that takes care of media versions. The final thing I wanted to show you is in content models, I'm gonna go to blog here. In content models, if you go to settings, we'll go to models, and we'll go to blog. Let's edit the model. In DatoCMS, you can turn on enable draft publish system, which means that whenever you make a change and click save, instead of being published immediately, it saves it as a draft. So I want to show you what happens to revisions when you do that. So let's do that. Let's go now that we turn that on, let's go to content. Let's go to here. We have revision and we have this as published. So now let's go ahead and we'll make it the life of Spock. So we changed the title. We'll click on save. And what happened? Well, the previous version is published. The current version, it's only saved. It is not published yet. So to get it published, you have to publish it. So it's important to understand that if you have draft turned on for a content type, whenever you make a new version or you save, right, you save a change, that change isn't published like it is when you don't have that on. It is just saved as a draft. So at that point, you then have to click on publish and you're going to see that it's going to go there. So now the previous version is no longer published. This version is published, but not the previous version. Of course, if you want to revert back, you can go back to this and say, restore this revision. And now we're back to, and see, it created a draft. So now we're back to publishing after we published the drafts. So keep in mind, revisions, if you don't have drafts turned on for a content type, will automatically create a copy and publish it. If you have drafts turned on, it'll create a copy, but keep it as drafts. So don't think that just by reverting, oh, okay, we have the new version live. You don't. You have to publish it still. Okay. That's pretty much it that I wanted to show you. I think I've covered pretty much everything. I did want to tell you that there are some things to think about. Deleting fields will delete the content in that field, all the content in that content type, right? So if I delete the body field, all the body content will be gone from the blog article content type, but also all revisions. So then if you go back and add body, you won't have those versions for that particular field, number one. Well, if you delete locales, all content is gone when you delete for that particular locale, which means all versions in that snapshot is gone as well. And also, somebody asked on Twitter if there was a limit on the number of revisions you can do. I really don't know that. You're going to have to go to DatoCMS and ask your CSM and see what they say. It may be, it may not be. I really don't know. But that's it. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I've got many more coming up for you. If you go to headlesscreator.com, for those of you watching live and don't have an account, go there, get your free account. You'll have access to all those upcoming lessons. If you have an account already, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your support. And like always, you can get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com, with any questions you may have. And that's it. For those of you watching live, I hope you enjoy this Friday and have a great weekend. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, everybody.